Okon's first three marriages had failed because he couldn't consummate his marriage with any of his wives due to his oversized manhood. His first three wives, Asari, Ekanem, and Amina, had left him because of the size of his manhood. He sought solution from a wise man in a distant land and then married a fourth wife, Ngozi, with whom he was able to consummate his marriage. But something terribly shocking happened. Let's get into part 2 of the story. The sun was slowly setting over the quiet village as Okon returned from his hunting trip. He had been out in the forest all day, chasing down prey to provide for his household. Life had been peaceful since his marriage to Ngozi. She was everything he had hoped for, patient and understanding. Things were finally falling in place for Okon. As he approached his compound, he noticed someone standing by the entrance. At first, he thought it was Ngozi waiting for him, but as he came closer, he noticed it was Asari, his first wife, the woman who had left him because she was unable to deal with the size of his manhood. Asari, he called out in surprise. Yes, Okon, it's me, she replied in a firm voice. Have come back for what belongs to me. You are my husband, and I won't let another woman take you away from me. Okon was taken aback. He hadn't seen Asari in years, not since she packed her things and left their marriage. She had left because of his size, and now, here she was, standing before him with an unreasonable demand. Asari, you left, Okon said, trying to keep his voice steady. You left because we couldn't. Yes, I left because we couldn't consummate the marriage, she interrupted. But that doesn't mean I stopped loving you. I made a mistake, Okon. I shouldn't have walked away, but I'm here now. I've heard that things are different with your new wife. Okon looked at her. Asari, what you heard is true. Ngozi and I have learned how to make things work. But that doesn't mean I can just welcome you back like nothing happened. You left me when I needed you most. Asari took a deep breath. I'm sorry, Okon. I acted out of frustration. But I'm ready to be patient now. I can't stand by and watch another woman take what's mine. Before Okon could respond, Ngozi appeared from inside the house with her calm demeanor. She had heard the conversation from the doorway and stepped forward to greet her husband and Asari. Welcome back, Asari, Ngozi said with a gentle voice. This house is big enough for all of us, but it's up to Okon to decide what happens next. Okon glanced between the two women with a heavy heart. In the past, it was common for men to have multiple wives, but he hadn't expected this. With a sigh, he knew he had no choice but to consult the elders. The next morning, after speaking with the elders, their decision was clear. Asari could stay, as long as she respected the household and did not disrupt the peace. Despite his initial reluctance, Okon accepted their advice. As the sun set again that evening, Okon prepared himself for the night. He decided to approach Asari the way he had been with Ngozi, gently touching her and speaking softly to her, hoping to ease her discomfort. But Asari wasn't having it. Stop touching me like that, Okon, she said, pulling away. It's an abomination for a man to touch a woman in such places before intimacy. This is not how it's supposed to be. Asari, please, just listen to me, Okon said. His voice was soft and pleading. This is how I was able to make it work with Ngozi. The old wise man had told me. I don't care what the old man said, Asari snapped. I'm not just like her. I don't want you touching me like that. Okon sighed. He had hoped that this would go smoothly, but it was clear that Asari wasn't ready to accept his new approach. That night, they slept apart, with Okon feeling confused, but this was just the beginning. The following days had unfolded a tense atmosphere in Okon's household. Asari's return had disrupted the harmony that he and Ngozi had cultivated. The tension was palpable, and Okon felt the pressure of both women's expectations. He had always believed that love could conquer all, but now he found himself questioning whether that was true. Asari busied herself around the house, trying to reclaim her role as the first wife. She cooked meals, cleaned the compound, and attended to their needs. Yet each attempt felt like an uphill battle. Whenever she tried to approach Okon, he would distance himself, reminding her of the past and the pain she caused him. One evening, as Okon sat outside, Ngozi joined him with an unhappy look. Okon, we need to talk. Things can't go on like this, she said softly. He nodded, staring into the distance. I know, I don't want to hurt anyone, but Asari is difficult. Ngozi took a deep breath. She's hurting, Okon. You know that. She loved you, and seeing you with me must feel like salt on an open wound. I can't go back to the way things were. It didn't work then, and it can't work now, Okon replied. Then we need to find a way to make things work together, Ngozi urged with a firm tone. You can't ignore her feelings forever. Maybe if you talk to her. Talk? I've tried that. Every time I approach her, she rejects me. She doesn't want to listen. She only wants to feel like she's the only one, Okon said. Perhaps you need to show her that you can love both of us in different ways, Ngozi suggested, her eyes searching his. You've learned to be intimate with me. Maybe you can teach her how to accept this new way. Okon sighed. I just don't want to lose you, Ngozi. I finally found peace with you. Then fight for it, she said. Show Asari that things can be different this time. Love doesn't have to be a competition. With that conversation, Okon resolved to approach Asari differently. The next evening, he summoned up courage to invite her outside for a talk. He found her sitting on the porch, staring into empty space with a frowning face. Asari, he called gently, taking a seat beside her. I want to talk. She turned to him. What is there to talk about? You've already made your choice, Okon. I haven't made a choice, he replied. I want both of you to be happy, and I need you to understand my feelings too. Asari crossed her arms. You think I don't understand? I've been here, watching you with her. I know I was the first, but it seems I mean nothing to you now. That's not true, he pleaded. You mean everything to me. But we both know how our past was filled with pain. I want to do better this time, for both of you. I want to find a way to share my love. She turned away and said with a whispering voice, You can't just decide to share love like it's a commodity, Okon. It's not that simple. Then help me make it simple, he urged with desperation. Teach me what you need from me. I want to understand. Asari's shoulders relaxed slightly, the anger melting away just a bit. You want me to teach you? She asked. Yes, he said. I want to learn how to love you in a way that makes you feel cherished. You deserve that. Asari paused, considering his words. It won't be easy, you know. I have my doubt, and I won't pretend otherwise. I don't expect you to, Okon replied, earnestly. But let's work things together. I want us to find a way back to each other. With a hesitant nod, Asari began to speak. Then I need you to promise me that you'll be patient. I need time to learn how to trust you again. I promise, Okon said. Together, we can figure this out. As the night grew darker, the two of them sat together under the stars, beginning the delicate dance of rebuilding their relationship. The atmosphere shifted slowly into a softer one. One morning, as Okon prepared for another day of hunting, he noticed Asari in the kitchen, stirring a pot of yam porridge. The aroma filled the air, reminding him of their early days together. It struck him then how much he had missed their shared moment. Asari, he called out. His voice was filled with warmth. This smells delicious. Are you making my favorite? She turned to him. I thought it might remind you of home. You used to love it when I made it for you. Indeed I did, Okon said, stepping closer. It's one of the things I've missed most since you left. After breakfast, Okon went hunting, and Asari stayed behind to clean and prepare the house. Before we continue our story, hit the subscribe button right now, please, and turn on post notifications so that whenever we make a post, you'll be the first to get notified. Please subscribe before we continue our story. Have you subscribed? Let's continue. In her quiet moment, she found herself reminiscing about their wedding day, a day that was filled with joy and hope, only to be followed by disappointment. Later that afternoon, when Okon returned, he found Asari outside, hanging washed clothes on the line. He was grateful watching her do that. Asari, he called, walking towards her. How about we take a break from chores and go for a walk, just like we used to? She agreed, and they took a walk around the village. Do you remember the first time we went to the market together? Asari chuckled softly. Yes, you were so eager to impress me. You bought that enormous bunch of plantains, but you didn't know how to carry them. You ended up dropping half of them. I was determined to show you I could provide. Okon laughed, shaking his head at the memory, and I made quite a fool of myself. I remember feeling so embarrassed for you, but deep down, I admired your willingness to try, Asari said. Just like now, Okon said, his tone was sincere. I'm trying to show you how I can be the husband you deserve. They found a quiet spot by the river bank and sat together. Asari, he said, I want to ask you something. Go on, she replied, her gaze fixed on the water. If you are willing to work on our relationship, I want us to learn together. We can explore intimacy in new ways. I believe that love can heal us, but we have to be open to it. I mean that we can take our time to understand each other's needs, he clarified. Let's learn about touch and intimacy in a way that feels right for both of us. She smiled. I like that, Okon, but it won't be easy. Then we'll face it together, Okon promised. I won't let you feel alone in this. In the days that followed, Okon bought gifts for Asari in an attempt to rekindle their love and give her a sense of belonging. One evening, as Okon and his wives sat at the veranda enjoying a meal of bushmeat pepper soup prepared from the game Okon had caught, someone came into the house through the backyard door with a big bag. They wondered who it was, for it was late in the evening. Who is that? Okon asked. It's me, Amina. Okon quickly recognized her voice. It was Amina, his third wife, the one who had told everyone in the village about her frustration with Okon's size because he couldn't consummate their marriage and had left him just before he married Ngozi. She was returning because her attempt to remarry someone else had failed twice. When she heard that Okon had remarried and even had a child with his new wife, she decided to come back. After all, he had married her and the bride price was not returned after their marriage failed. She was ashamed to come back to Okon during the day, so she decided to come back late in the evening, following a bush track to avoid the eyes and gossips of the villagers. Okon stood up. What are you doing here, Amina? He asked in a cold voice. I've come back to my husband, she said. Which husband? The one you disgraced in the entire village because of the problem we had? Okon said angrily. Amina broke down in tears, begging Okon to forgive all she did. I was frustrated and afraid that we may never be able to consummate our marriage and have children. Please, I'm sorry, she said. The two wives were watching in shock, unsure of what Okon's decision will be. Okon was still angry, but couldn't send Amina away because it was late, so he allowed her to spend the night, but he warned her that she would leave his house first thing in the morning of the next day. The next morning, Okon woke up early to send Amina away and prepare for his hunting trip. But something shocking happened when he opened her door. He couldn't find her, but her belongings were still there. Okon was surprised. What kind of problem is this? He whispered to himself. Where could she have gone so early? Okon didn't know whether or not to go out hunting that day. He wasn't sure what would happen when he's not around or what to expect when he comes back. He decided to delay a little bit to see if Amina would come back. He thought she must have pulled a trick on him, knowing he goes out hunting every day. Maybe she went out hiding somewhere so she could come back home when she discovers I'm out, he thought. About an hour later, two messengers from the king came to Okon's compound. The king needs you to come to the palace now, they announced. What could be wrong? Okon asked. It's the king's instruction. Please come with us. Okon left everything and followed them. When they got to the king's palace, he saw Amina there. It became clear to Okon that Amina had reported to the king. The truth was that Amina had come early to beg the king, narrating all that had happened between her and Okon. She pleaded the king and told him that she wants to get back with her husband, promising to be of good behavior. The king had summoned Okon to hear his own side of the story. After the king had heard from both of them, there was no difference in the two versions of the story. He counseled Okon to go back with his wife, pointing out that the bride price wasn't returned, which made her still his wife. He also mentioned that she had promised to be of good behavior. Okon had nothing more to say. He couldn't disobey the king, so he went home with his wife and continued the day's activity. The next few weeks transformed the dynamics within Okon's household. The three women began to share household responsibilities, each woman taking turns in the kitchen and working together to maintain the home. Okon marveled at how quickly things had changed. He had to work hard to care for three women and a child. When Amina left Okon the first time, she had gone back to learn ways to be with a man, especially the kind of man that had Okon's size. She had inquired of the older women, who told her how to prepare herself for it. Some native remedies and enhancers were prescribed for her, and she came back ready for Okon. Only that this time, Okon had remarried Ngozi, and his first wife was back to him. With Okon and Amina, it was easy because of everything Amina had learned and practiced. Okon also applied the old man's advice, and everything worked like magic. The household continued to enjoy peace. The three wives lived in harmony, each subtly competing for her husband's attention. For Asari, it was her meals. She put so much effort to make sure that Okon feeds well, and would usually prepare his favorite. Okon loved Asari's meals so much, and it made him really love her. For Ngozi, it was her daughter. She prided herself as the first wife to give Okon a child, and she tried her best to make sure that she conceives a male child before the other wives. Okon loved his daughter so much and treated the mother, Ngozi, with love too. For Amina, it was her bedmatics. She had invested her time and energy to learn what would work for a man like Okon, and it was as though she had custom-made moves for Okon in that area. Okon loved her so much for this. He tried to treat his wives as equally as he could, but each wife kept outdoing the other in different ways. There was subtle rivalry among the wives. One afternoon, Ekanem arrived at Okon's house. He had gone out to hunt, but she met his three wives at home. Ekanem was the second wife Okon had married after Asari, who had left her marriage unannounced because of the problem of Okon's manhood. Now, she was back. None of the wives knew her because they had not met her before then, so she waited for Okon to be back. Okon had thought one time to himself that maybe one day Ekanem would come back because he witnessed as his wives returned to him one by one. First, it was Asari, the first wife he had married, then Amina, the third wife. So he had prepared his mind just in case Ekanem decides to come back. Now, she was back and Okon was not at home. When he came back home that evening and met her, he was surprised, but it confirmed his thoughts and suspicion. He couldn't help but take her back because he had already prepared his mind to accept her if she comes back, and also he had already accepted his other two wives when they returned. Okon's household was full, each wife meeting his unique need with subtle rivalry because each one wanted to be the apple of his eyes. The village was abuzz with the news. Before their very eyes, each of Okon's wives returned. Some men envied him. Others said he will die soon from the troubles of marrying many women. But Okon didn't mind. He continued to provide for his household. He remembered that the villagers had mocked him in the past when each of his wives left, and now that he had them back, the same villagers were still talking. The elders admired and commended Okon for his maturity in handling and taking care of 4 wives. It was rare to see a man with 4 wives in the village. In fact, no one had 4 wives in the whole village. The highest was 2. And here was Okon, handling a large household with 4 wives and providing for them. There was peace and harmony in his home. His wives had become pregnant almost at the same time, and each one prayed to be the one to give Okon his first male child, just to gain more of his affection and attention as the mother of his first son. And that was how Okon's oversized manhood, which had initially chased away 3 wives, helped him to keep and maintain 4 wives, all happy. All right, so what did you learn from this story? Share it in the comment section. And please subscribe to this channel right now and turn on post notification so that whenever a story is posted, you'll be the first to get notified and you'll be the first to watch. Like and share this. Don't forget to drop your lessons in the comment section. Subscribe and see you in our next story. Bye bye.